All right. I'll read our electronic meeting procedures before we call the meeting. So this is the Historic Preservation Commission on August 16th, 2021. And for our electronic meeting, all commissioners will be on video. Commissioners and staff will be asked to click raise hand when they wish to speak. The chair will call on individuals to speak. Commissioners and staff are asked to keep their microphones muted until called upon. Members of the public will be muted during presentations and commissioner discussion. The public may join the meeting from a computer or dial in by phone. All public members are muted upon entry. To make a comment during public comment segments, if you're on a computer, click the raise hand icon. It is either in the participants panel on the right side of your screen or in the control panel at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You may have to hover over that area to see it. If you're on a phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand. The chair will call on those with raised hands individually, and you'll be unmuted when called upon. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. And then if we can have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Keller.
Yeah, I'm here.
Commissioner Berg. Okay. Commissioner Clemmy.
Here.
Chair Haley.
Here. All right, and then for our agenda this evening, any changes or amendments, or if we want to move to approve?
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Keith, are you good? All right, that was majority, so we'll keep moving. Approval for minutes from our July 26th meeting. Looking over those, any changes? Or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve last July's meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Those are approved. And any public comments on items that are not on our agenda this evening? And I don't see any. All right. And then for item 6, we have public hearing for a demolition request for 601 McKinley Avenue, and we'll have a staff report.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'm on my phone tonight. I was having some microphone difficulties. So the first agenda item before you this evening is 601 McKinley Avenue, which is a request for demolition of the existing structure, and this did go before a subcommittee. On the left-hand side of your screen, you should be seeing an aerial view of the location with 601 McKinley itself outlined in yellow there on kind of the bottom left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you can see a general map of the Old Town overlay with a star indicating where it is. You can see it's right there just north of the elementary school. A couple photos of the historic record. Again, just a few historic photos. The one on the left is an aerial image with the blue arrow kind of indicating where 601 McKinley is in reference. And then the photo on the right is a photo from the Boulder County Assessor's card. The two photos here are the current conditions. So you can see both of these would be roughly the front facade of the house, but you can see on the left inside your screen is the essentially the front elevation or the elevation along McKinley, which would be the east facing elevation. And then the photo on the right hand side would be the southeast. So you can see some more of the kind of chimney detailing in the brick there on the side as well. For demolition review, before you decide is some of the information concerning why we undertake demolition review and the criteria with which we can review the structure requesting demolition. So in part, this includes reviewing its ability to be individually landmarked. In the case of 601 McKinley, in terms of age significance and integrity, the home was built in 1947, making it 74 years old. The house is associated with the historic mid-century development of Louisville and the Louisville Heights subdivision, and has associations with the Grunkemeyer family, who are business owners in town, and is representative of a changing and growing Old Town as more mid-century styled homes were constructed, particularly kind of along the outer edges of what we know as Old Town today. For its integrity, the structure retains 5 out of the 7 aspects of integrity, including location, setting, design, association, and feeling, and is on the same lot as when it was constructed. And then the specific cost, specific condition and cost assessments are unknown at this time. Therefore, staff recommends the Historic Preservation Commission issue a 180-day stay on the demolition of the house, which would expire January 9th of 2022, giving the applicant time to research alternatives and work with staff. And so with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
No.
No.
All right, and the applicant's here this evening.
That's correct. We have Cody Thompson. And before I kind of give the floor away, I just want to make note that there was also one email public comment associated with this agenda item. And so I would just remind you that you should motion to put that in at time of public comment, so you have that on the record.
Okay, so we need to make a motion to do that.
You could do it at the time of general public comment. So staff presentation, applicant presentation, and public comment. You could make the motion to move it into the record officially.
Okay. So Andrew, if I forget to do that, help me remember during public comment. Okay, thank you. And for the applicant, if you'll state your name and address for us.
My name is Cody Thompson. I don't currently have an address. My previous address was 536 Main Street in Louisville.
All right, and you're welcome to talk to us tonight if you have anything prepared or want to do it any other way.
Sure. No, I don't have anything prepared. So basically, I just gave you the feedback when I bought the house. I really looked at it closely because I do appreciate historic preservation, and I really like Old Town as it is. This house, though, the setbacks on this house are so. There is no setbacks, to be honest. In fact, the front of the house had to be poured. They had to pour the sidewalk around the front of the house because the setback is right up against the initial sidewalk. So there's really not much for me to do when I think about, I would like to build a house with a front porch, with windows facing the front of the house. Those kind of things are very important to me, and having that interaction with the neighbors and walking by. I mean, that was one of the best things I had about my house on Main Street. And so that's something I would like again. And this house, I'm building this house for myself. And so that's very important to me. And it's just not conducive for that, just because it's located right in the very corner of the property up against the front property line. So there's just not much that can be done with the exception of trying to pick up the house and move it back. On top of that, there's just no visual, there's no side, no windows from the front of the house. It's just so much that's just not conducive to my lifestyle today that I just don't see how I could even use it. So I would like to design a home that better fits that street. It's a beautiful street. And I'd like to build a home that's a little bit more traditional and like the neighboring homes are. So that's kind of that's my goal for what I would like to try to accomplish. With respect to the public feedback letter that you got, it was based 100% on hearsay from my old neighbor who didn't get along with me after I called the police on him. So Garrett Mundeline. So I don't really want to go into detail because it was just hearsay. So I'll leave it at that. But I did feel it was inappropriate to, address personal issues rather than the project at hand. So yeah, I guess really that's my goal, is to have just a house on the property that's a very beautiful home that fits the neighborhood, just like my house on 536 Main did. So yeah, thank you.
All right. So you don't have any questions for the applicant?
Come on, there's got to be one. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll open it up to public comment, and we will make a motion. We do have a letter that needs to be put into public comment for the record. So if someone wants to make a motion to have that entered into the record. And then I'll see if
I'll
there's
make
any.
a motion to have the letter entered into the public record.
I'll second the motion.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So that will be submitted into public record. And then, are there any comments from the public? It looks like Garrett Mundeline had his hand up. If we can unmute him. And then if you will state your name and address for us for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
So my name is Garrett Mundeline. I'm actually online because I have I'm involved with the next item on the agenda. But it's taken me by surprise that my name is mentioned in this one. I don't have access to a letter, so I'm not sure what letter was received. I'm not aware of anything that that brings me into this application at all, or what issues were raised. As a builder in town, I will comment that I do actually agree with what Mr. Thompson is saying on this. This house is built out of most of the setbacks it seems to have for that property, from side setbacks and front yard setbacks. And so I would agree with his application on this and say it's in the interest of the neighborhood for him to redevelop. And I also own a house down the street from this. I'm about 3 houses down and across the street from this project that he's doing as well. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I think there is confusion. The letter, just for the record,
Right.
Mr. Thompson, the letter that we received was actually from a different party. I think it was, let me bring that up just for clarity. So Elizabeth, the letter that we're referring, that we put into the public record, is actually from Elizabeth Woody and Ernesto Flores at 600 McKinley Avenue. Just to be clear on that.
Right, I don't see anything in here regarding Garrett either, so. So I don't know what the connection is either. All right. Do we need to clear that up, or can we? Kim, is there anything we need to do right now? This is just gonna, I don't know, with the letter and the, because it's not like,
Yeah,
the
so
public can't see it right now. I don't know if we need to read it or show it or something like that. Is there anything we need to
Sure.
do to address
Chair
it?
Haley, this is Rob Zuccaro.
Yes.
All you need to do is put it into the record. We were just being
Okay.
extra cautious from a procedural standpoint. We did, post it on the website. We sent it to the applicant. We sent it
Okay.
to you, and we just wanted to really make sure that everybody knew it was part of the record for the public hearing.
Okay.
So you really don't need to do anything else other than, vote for it to be
Okay.
in the
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
record.
you. I just want to make sure. All right, I'm gonna look for any other comments from the public, and I don't see any.
Does Mr. Mundell want to make another comment?
Yeah.
Sorry, I hit that by mistake. I'm not sure why that's
Oh, okay, that's fine. We're just making sure.
getting used to it.
Okay.
Hello,
And
Mr.
then, Andre Mazur. I probably didn't say that correctly, but if you have a comment, if you just want to state your name and address for us. And I think you're muted also.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Great. My name's Andre Mazur, 471 East Raintree Court. I've been a realtor in town for over 20 years, and I've been through the subject property that Mr. Thompson's proposing to develop. And it really is in bad shape. And in my mind, the way it's located on the lot just doesn't bring anything to that particular street. So I would concur with Mr. Thompson that it makes sense to push the property back. And I think that kind of development would improve the neighborhood.
All right. Hear your comment. All right, any other public comments? I don't see any. All right, so we'll bring it back for commission discussion.
It's been mentioned a couple times how close the home is to the sidewalk, to the road. Are there some other safety issues with that, or is it more sort of the visual look of the home and thus the street that's of concern?
Is that a question to us or to the applicant or to anyone? Okay.
Those who've mentioned it, it's been mentioned by a couple people here. Being so close is problematic. Can we kind of get some more information on why that's so problematic?
Sure, so we can open it back to the applicant again.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, great. Why is it problematic? Because it doesn't allow you to have the front porch, have that interaction with the neighbors having a front porch. There's no front door on the house. There's no front porch. There's the front windows are all tiny and high up, and it encroaches on the sidewalk. So if you were to say, hey, let's keep the existing structure, but build a front porch on it, well, there's just no room. There's no room for a front yard or for a front picket fence. I mean, it just, it doesn't have any of that. It's just right there at the edge of the sidewalk, and then the sidewalk poured around them. They actually curve the sidewalk out against the street, and then when it comes to the end of the property, back into having a mow strip again. So that's how close it was to the front. So there's just no room to do anything in the front, and then all the other houses have the typical 20-foot setback. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. And I think I saw in your letter that you wrote that the north and south sides are also not really workable for porches. Is that correct?
Correct. The south side of the lot is, I think, 1 or 2 feet from the property border, and the north side is against the driveway. So there's no room to move. Mm-hmm. The whole house is just, smashed up against the front and takes up every square foot. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for the applicant before the discussion, just to make sure we have all our questions answered that he can give us?
Has it been looked into what the cost would be to move the home on the property further back? There's been homes in Louisville, historic homes that have been moved from street to street.
It has not been, no. There's also asbestos mitigation that has to come into play, and that will do extensive damage inside the house. So once you mitigate for asbestos, I think the damages to the house are going to be costly. So trying to move it and mitigate for that is not financially feasible. Thank you for asking.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Cody. We'll bring it back for discussion again.
Thanks.
So obviously this house is 50 years or older. It does have strong architectural integrity as far as maintaining the original size, shape, characteristics as far as the architecture. It has strong social history. And as staff point out, we don't know the price of, as far as the condition of the house, any kind of mitigations they'd have to do, moving, any of that kind of thing. So there's some things we don't have information on. So what are other thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, unfortunately, it did make our list because not our list, but it was, the consulting company liked this property because it was very unique style that we don't have many of, that simplistic ranch or minimalistic ranch. But yeah, I would agree that the property lines make it difficult for the property owner to be able to do and enjoy the property the way that he would like. It's unfortunate for everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I could put my 2 cents worth in, Chrissy had a good point there. Most of the lots in Louisville are very deep, and there's probably, I haven't seen the lot plot, but it's probably room to move it back. And $40,000 in grant would go a long way to move it and do any mitigation, if indeed it does need asbestos mitigation. So I don't really put a lot of weight on that argument, personally.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely do some research, have research done as far as price points and things for moving and mitigating and everything. I agree that the fact that Paleo West picked out this structure specifically is significant and something we definitely need to just take note of. And I think as far as the Old Town overlay, like in the position of this house, it like physically shows how Louisville downtown changed over time. And so it's on that very outskirt of the boundary. So that's significant. It's something that, like, losing the house will lose that physical history. We will no longer have that visual of how our architecture and family life changed during that time. And it's something we're gonna have to deal with from here on out, just as far as things getting 50 years or older, things getting younger in time. That's just a hard thing that historic preservation has to deal with. So those are all very significant. The other piece that I keep thinking about too is if the applicant was to look to see what it would cost to actually move it and mitigate all that. It sounds like the plan is to be able to add a front porch. And if that were to happen, like, that wouldn't be approved as a landmark because it would significantly change the front of the house. And it sounds like it doesn't like where the door is. That would change the house. So there's a lot of things in that respect that would, I think, even exploring that there'd still be some deterrence. But I still think it's a very significant house. So that's what I have a hard time with, is just it's plain as far as the simplicity of that era. It's a different style house. But it is significant to our downtown. So that's just one of the things we have to, I think it's I think we put a lot of money and legitimacy into our Paleo West survey. Like we trusted them to like give us good feedback as far as what are our core properties and what. So I think that's just something that we just need to really weigh as far as how significant is that? Like, is this something that we just say, oh, that's a good, thanks Paleo West, that's a good recommendation, but when it comes down to it, like there's just some other things. So that's just my hang up is I feel like it's a significant house. So, but I understand like the front porch issue and the setbacks and all the things, like I get it. So. If anyone has any other feedback or discussion.
So, yeah, this doesn't come up. Well, these don't come up too often. So I guess I'm, so to get the, to find out how much it would be, that would involve an HSA, right?
Possibly. I mean, the HSA would talk about the structural things as far as asbestos and any kind of mitigation way. The moving piece would probably be I don't know if that'd be covered in the HSA, as far as like an estimate of what
to get that number.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, so if, I mean, that would definitely be, it would definitely the HSA would definitely give a good idea of condition and overall mitigation cost of the house.
Right.
And I'm sure moving wouldn't be too hard to throw in there as far as how much that would cost.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it'd be a bad thing to explore. I think that's my like overall feeling is I don't think it'd be a bad thing to explore. But
so then the question becomes if we agree that it's worth exploring, is 180 days the appropriate number for that if the applicant went down that road,
right,
or worked with the staff to go down that road? Is 180 days the appropriate length of time, or is there a different number? Because we've done that before. We've done less time
days. Yeah. Chrissy, do you want to say something?
Not just yet.
Okay. Keith, do you have any feedback at this point?
Yeah, I kind of agree that 180 days might be excessive, but I would think it'd take at least 2 months. If not, 6 months might be a little long for a stay. That's the only put I have. I think there's options if the lot is big enough, which I'm pretty sure it is, to move it and have a nice front porch if that's what he really wants to do. I'm just not convinced that he really wants to keep the house.
Right. Well, as far as landmarking, the front porch probably wouldn't be plausible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're smarter than I am. I didn't think about that.
But
yeah, you're probably right.
Things like front patios, walk.
Yeah.
There's
options. Front patio.
Right. There's still other options.
Right, of course, there's options. The moving front doors, like the windows are mid-century. It's a mid-century home, so the windows are at eye level, as indicated, and very small and rectangular. So right, changes like that would be harder to work around if that's what the owner
Yeah.
wants to do in terms of landmarking.
Right.
It'd be difficult to get a landmarking if those were something the owner was really set upon.
Right.
I do think it's a tricky one. There's not all that many minimal traditional ranch style homes in Louisville. And this is, as Linda said, just a really well-maintained example of that, one that's been, singled out in particular by the city. So it'd be good to see what options exist and kind of do due diligence and, see what could happen to work towards preserving this for the town, I think would be where I stand.
Mm-hmm. And I absolutely agree. Like, a front porch, there's other options as far as patios and all kinds of front yard, all kinds of things. And I think there could be a creative solution that embraces the mid-century modern era. Like, it could be a fun, creative project. It doesn't have to be limited or all that. And I think I think there's some, I know Denver has a lot of really great mid-century modern neighborhoods, and just getting inspiration from his other communities. And we don't have to just give up on it just because it doesn't have a front porch and it doesn't look like the other homes and all that. Like, there's history here, and I think it is a significant home, as pointed out by our survey. So yeah, so I think it's worth exploring. I think obviously we are voluntary, and so the homeowner has the last say and all that. Like, we fully respect homeowner decision, but I think as a commission, we do also have the responsibility of making sure that there's due diligence as far as, exploring all the options and making sure just all the avenues have kind of been tried before we just give up on a home. So
Yeah, I would agree. So it sounds like we're leaning towards a stay.
right.
The amount of times you've done in the past, I think, sort of predate me. So what are some options there?
So we might need to ask Rob and Kim as far as the logistics of changing the stay or recommending a different amount. I should know this.
Yeah, you could recommend a different amount than staff's just a 180-day recommendation. So you could alter that. It couldn't go beyond 180 days. That would be the maximum.
Right.
But you could certainly pick a date that's fewer, or days that are fewer than that. And that would be your discretion. That has happened in the past. There's precedents where it's a staff recommendation of 180, and the commission has requested it to be less, depending on based on conversation. So you could go less. You just couldn't do more.
Okay. And so right now the stay would, let's see.
So it would be to
It would
January
expire
9th at 180 days.
Okay. So what about like a 90-day? Because already they're a month into it, so it would actually be more of they'd have 60 days left.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree with that.
Yeah, I guess my gut's telling me that's not quite enough time because we
Okay.
are a month into it. So I would go for 120.
Okay.
Right. I think 120 seems more appropriate since this is just coming. The idea to do a stay is just coming tonight. That would really give 90 days from now. So
Okay.
120.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. My gut just isn't feeding me back good information right now. So I'm going to go with your guys' gut.
All right. So it sounds like we're in consensus for a 120-day stay. on this property. So if anyone wants to make a motion on this.
I'll attempt to do this correctly. I make a motion that for the demolition request for 601 McKinley, have a stay of 120 days from the
Okay.
date the request was made.
That's great. For 601 McKinley, right?
For 601 McKinley.
Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, and we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Keller,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemmy,
Yes.
Chair Haley.
Yes. And so hopefully during this time, staff will reach out as far as just options as far as getting estimates and looking through our program and all that. So, and then obviously, like we said, in 120 days, the stay will be lifted. So, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And we like your house a lot, so this is a compliment. So you have a cool house, you have great history. So yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah.
Have a nice day.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Chair Haley, this is Rob Zucchero. Sorry to interrupt, but before you get to the next item, can we take a 10-minute recess? There may be a procedural issue with the next application, and
Oh, okay.
Kim and I need to touch base and get back to you if we can maybe reconvene in 10 minutes from now.
Okay, do we sign off or just?
No, you could. Yeah, I apologize. You can stay on
Okay.
if you don't mind, and Kim and I will try to touch base and
Okay.
then get back in 10 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, everybody should please stay on, keep the meeting going, and then we'll get back at. I have 7:07, so let's try to get back at 7:17.
Okay, that's great.
Okay,
And
thank
we
you.
can turn our cameras off and.
You just turn your cameras off, but everybody should stay logged in. Thank
Okay,
you.
that's great. Okay, we'll see you in 10.
All right, so can everybody hear me? This is Rob Zucchero again.
Yes. we can hear you.
Okay, okay. So I think Kim and I are ready to proceed whenever everybody else is.
Okay, I think we're all back.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. So yeah, so we apologize for this mix-up, but we want to try to clarify some procedural issues. So I think the applicant for the next application submitted, I think it was late today. I think we got an email with a letter presentation from the applicant. And I don't know if you've read that yet, but on the second page, he points out a procedural issue with the subcommittee review. So if you're familiar with our code, it says that, bear with me here. I'm gonna have to take a few minutes to explain this, and then we have to see if the commission is comfortable proceeding with
Okay.
the hearing this evening. So section 15.36.200. So these are all our procedures for how demolition reviews take place. So within that section, it says that it goes to a subcommittee when we get an application for a demolition. So it says that is supposed to go to the subcommittee. So section E says it has to go to the subcommittee within 21 days of receiving a complete application. So the applicant in this case submitted a building permit on July 2nd. We believe that we contacted them to get clarification on the permit and let them know they actually just needed to submit a demolition permit. So we believe we received the actual demolition permit on July 20th. So that's our date that we believe we received a complete application for demolition. The code says that within 21 days, the subcommittee is supposed to make a determination on whether that needs to be bumped up for public hearing. That date wasn't met. Staff sent that to the subcommittee at 21 days. Which was, probably too late to make a determination. And so it was a little after 21 days, as we understand it, that the subcommittee actually made a determination for this hearing. Now, what the code says, it doesn't say if you don't meet the 21-day period that the city shall issue the permit. It says for filed building permit applications, if the staff member and 2 randomly selected members of the commission fail to submit their recommendation to the building division within 30 days after the building division accepts a complete permit application, the building division shall issue the permit if all of the requirements of the permit process have been met. So we are having this hearing within 30 days of receiving a complete application on July 20th. The committee confirmed that they felt like this hearing was necessary. So it was we didn't follow the procedure the way it was supposed to be followed with the 21 days precisely, but this hearing is within 30 days. There has been a subcommittee review that confirmed the hearing needs to take place within 30 days, as we understand it. So although, again, staff really didn't follow the procedure, it doesn't necessitate issuance of the demolition permit because we've met the 30-day standard. So that's kind of a convoluted explanation, but Kim and I just kind of figured out this issue, within the last couple hours. So we're trying to work through it. So we feel that, again, even though we haven't followed the procedure exactly, we've met the 30-day requirement that would necessitate issuance of the demolition permit without the hearing. We can certainly ask the applicant if they are, continuing to protest the hearing before we get the hearing started. And then, one of the things we could do is we can continue the hearing and then, consult with the city attorney if we need to, but we could also see if the applicant still is protesting whether we have to issue the permit as well. But I'm going to stop there, see if the commission has any questions for staff, but at some point we should probably check in with the applicant as well.
Okay. This is a first.
Yes.
Okay, so 20 days from the 20th of July. So we're at 28 days right now, which is
Yeah.
barely under 30.
But it doesn't say we have to have, you only have to have the hearing within 60 days of the application. But the subcommittee has to inform the building department within 30 days that they want the hearing to take place.
Okay. Okay. And so staff feels like we're within our time frame as far as, obviously we didn't do it perfectly, but we're still within the time frame.
Right, yeah, we did not meet the time frame for the subcommittee to do the review, but that doesn't automatically necessitate the issuance of the permit. It's if they don't make their determination within 30 days, and that was met.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this before we check in with the applicant?
No, I think we got it.
Okay.
Thank you for going through that, Rob.
Yeah. Okay. And so before we proceed, we'll check in with the applicant and just see what their thoughts are.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. And if
So
you say your name and address for us again,
Right.
you've already
my
spoken.
name's Andre Mazur, 471 East Raintree Court, Louisville. And I'm going to defer to Garrett on this because it's beyond my mental capacity to understand clearly what happened with this application. And it seems to be a little messed up in some ways, but I'm sure we can figure it out. So I'm going to let Garrett speak on my behalf with regard to the application.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And then again, if you'll just state your name and address for us for the record.
I am trying to start the video. There we go. So, so my name is Garrett Mundelein, and my address is 555 County Road. And I would respectfully disagree with the with what Mr. Zuccaro is stating, in that if you go in to apply for any kind of demo permit or otherwise in the city, and you walk into the building department, they will refer you to the city portal for putting in your application. And so with that in mind, we put the permit through the building department portal for a demolition permit. If you're not familiar with the application process for the city of Louisville, they do have a portal that you need to be signed up for. It goes through and gives you specific items to pick from. And the specific item we picked when we put the application in on July 2nd was demolition for the rear part of this house. And we supplied all supporting documents at that time. On July 19th, we had not heard anything from staff. I called in and talked with Kim on the phone. She informed me at that time that she was not aware or did not have access to the application portal, and asked me to forward those documents that I submitted on July 2nd to her direct email, which I did. At the same time, she also asked me for a narrative for the Historical Preservation Commission review. I wrote that and gave that to her on the 20th. So based on the way, my understanding with based on the way this review is written, we're outside of that timeline. Now, I will also add, I've been a resident in Louisville since 1996. I was very heavily involved when all of this started, was being written. It predates, I think, most of the people, including all the planning staff that's currently here. And the reason why we made sure that that timeline was put in here was so that staff had a time is of the essence response to these applications. And so that, I would say, is a straight up legal side of this. And I feel we're outside of the timelines, and therefore the applicant should be able to go in tomorrow and submit for his demo permit. With that said, I have worked with as a long time city resident here. I have worked with the applicant in modifying what his original submittal to the city was for this property in order to make it fit more in line with what our historical preservation commission would like to see. So I do feel what we're submitting honors the intent of our historical preservation. And even with this legal, I don't know, variance or misstep, if you will, I still think our application, it would be approved by you for the demolition, because we are planning on keeping the front of the house. And the back section is not structurally sound. It's not built correctly. And so, you know, I don't know if the best thing to do is to move forward with the review, see how you guys decide. And if you decide to put a stay on it, then we can argue with the city attorney tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you, Garrett. Sorry to interrupt again. This is
No,
Rob
no.
Zucchero. I just want to get some clarification because I've opened up, and maybe Kim could weigh in, and I apologize for this confusion. We just didn't have any head time that this, I don't think that this issue was here, but I'm looking in our permit software, and Kim helped me out, but I'm seeing a demolition permit from July 21st. Was there an actual demolition permit submitted on July 2nd, I think is what we need to find out. But I also agree with Garrett, Mr. Mundelein. One of the things we can do is just have the hearing. And then if there is a legal issue that forces us to issue the permit despite your stay, we would be bound by that, and we could look into that tomorrow, and we could still have the hearing on the merits as if it was a valid hearing. I think that's fine as well if we want to move forward. But Kim, do you have any clarification on what was submitted July 2nd?
Hi, Kim Bauer here, if everyone can hear me. Yes, so from my understanding, there was a permit that would have been for both the house and the shed. And then we did let them know about the house being older than 1955 and the HPC reviews that might follow, both the subcommittee and then potentially a full meeting. And then the shed was eventually separated out as it was deemed younger, so not as old as 1955, meaning it wouldn't have been bound to the subcommittee review. So I would have to double check the dates, but given that knowledge and knowing we went that course, it's likely that the permit you're looking at that's the 21st is just the shed. And then we did get those full demolition of application for the HPC hearing meeting on July 20th.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. So I think, we'll have to look into what was submitted and if a complete application was submitted, but I think I might recommend having the hearing on the merits of the hearing, and then we'll have to see if there was some violation of our procedure that would require us to submit the permit if you even issue a stay on it. But don't let that influence your determination. Just look at it on the merits of the hearing. So I think, as Mr. Mundelein suggested, if that's acceptable to him, just to move forward with the hearing and we can review the legal issues later, or, we can continue it if the commission wishes as well for 30 days. And if we do find it's a valid hearing, we can come back, next month for the hearing. Is another alternative if the commission's more comfortable with that. And again, I apologize for the awkwardness of this.
No, it's fine. We can handle it. So I'm fine with going ahead with the hearing if the applicant is. And it seems like time-wise, that would be the most timely and not binding. It sounds like if our decision doesn't agree with yours and you choose to go through the legal procedure. So do any commission members feel differently? Is Keith with us? I should make sure he's here. I don't know if because we're not gonna be able to do anything if we don't have. Keith, are you with us still? Um,
There he is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's
I'm
okay.
here. I agree. I think we should press forward. That might be
Okay.
the best use of time right now.
okay, we just want to make sure that we
And
have.
hopefully there's no legal issues.
Okay, okay, just need to check in with everyone. Okay, and for the applicant, is that okay? Just to proceed? Mr. Mudlin and Mazur?
That's fine. And just concurring what Garrett said, I did actually have some plans drawn up that would have completely changed the look of that house, and on reflection, went back on that design and maintained the integrity of the shape of the house. So we actually went back to what we felt was in keeping with the neighborhood. So I'm fine moving ahead, and I really don't want to get into any legal issues. It just doesn't go anywhere. So let's see if it carries through on the merits of what we're planning to do.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
Great.
All right, and just so that you know, I've never seen this happen before, and I've been with the team for years, so this isn't our regular, like our staff generally, and I don't know anything about the portal or how things come through, but generally things are timely and very time sensitive. So I apologize that this happened on your application, but just know that's not our norm. So
That's fine. These things happen.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you for proceeding. So we will have a staff report to start this.
All right, good evening, everyone. So this agenda item, as we've talked about a little bit, is 614 Grant Avenue, which is a request to demolish the existing structure. And so located on the left of your screen would be the location, 614, outlined in yellow on the left-hand side with the aerial map. And on the right-hand side would be a general location with the star, given its location within the Old Town overlay. For the historic record photos, the photo on the left-hand side would be the Boulder County Assessor's Office photo from that card from 1948. And then on the right-hand photo is just a photo from one of the families that lived there circa 1957. You can see the part of the existing home on the very right-hand edge of the side, but just as another historic photo we came across. For current conditions, these are before you here. On the left-hand side, you'll see the west elevation, the west facing elevation of the property, and then on the right-hand side, a slight deviation from that to the southwest side. You can see the carport extending there, and then the added siding there. You can see in the photos. For demolition criteria before you on this slide, then would be some information just concerning why we undertake demolition review and the criteria with which we can review the structure requesting demolition. And in part, this would include its ability to be individually landmarked. For 614 Grant, the building was constructed circa 1905, making it approximately 116 years old. With the previous owners and residents of this property having been drawn to coal mining work in Louisville from places across the world, this house represents a spectrum of Louisville history and residence, and certainly ties to our coal mining heritage. And then for its integrity, the structure would add integrity as it represents sort of the pattern of growth typical not only in Louisville, but in this Pleasant Hill edition of Old Town itself. And it does retain 5 out of the 7 aspects of integrity, including location, setting, design, association, and feeling. And it has not moved since it's originally constructed. The specific property condition is unknown, and cost estimates are unknown at this time as well. So staff is recommending a 180-day stay on the demolition of the house, which would expire on January 16th of 2022, giving the applicant time to research alternatives with staff. And for that, I'm here for any questions.
This isn't a full demolition, is that correct? This is partial?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for confirming. So it would be, the proposal would be keep the first 12 feet of the west elevation side, that facade of the home, and then the demolition of the rest of the structure, including the carport and everything to the rear of that.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the first 12 feet to the west, on the west, and that is the street
Yeah, great.
side.
That's right. I said that a little funny. So it'd be the west facing elevation, but you're right. That kind of front facade that faces the street where you saw the two windows, that the first 12 feet of that would remain.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Just gonna look at the 12 feet is probably a pretty significant chunk of this house. All right. So I don't see any other questions for staff. So we'll have the applicant presentation. And one more time, just make sure you state your name and address just for public record, even though this is your third time to do this.
Right. Garrett Mundelein, 555 County Road in Louisville here, 80027. And so the purpose of this review is to prevent the loss of buildings that may have historical or architectural significance. The community also wants to make sure that the reviewed buildings are structurally sound and do not pose a risk to its inhabitants. With these ideas in mind, I'll dispense with the following. 614 Grant demonstrates no social historical significance that defines it differently than any other property in town. It had historical inhabitants, just like every other older home in Louisville. It was one of the many homes that were developed by Orrin Welch and holds no significance because of this fact. There's many other homes in the area that he also developed. There exists no extraordinary previous owner that holds a historical significance that would warrant preservation of this structure. And the structure is very similar to tens, if not hundreds, of other homes that have been around town. 614 Grant demonstrates no architectural significance. It is not located in any specific historical district other than being an old town overlay, nor does it have any redeeming or potential historical architectural features, which is also noted in the staff review. 614 Grant has definitive structural issues, including but not limited to floor framing structure that shows obvious signs of warpage and movement, framing members in the floor system that are undersized by more than threefold, mold and degradation issues that are beyond repair. This all pretty much applies to the rear section of the house. And that is the part that we're looking for a demolition on. That rear section, if you see the picture in that pack, I'm hoping that you guys received, that was sent over today. It's 2x4 framing on more than 2 foot spans. And so it just simply is not structurally sound. In the front, so current code would require 2x12s for that same span on 16-inch centers. The walls show signs of movement, warpage, water intrusion, and mold growth as well on the rear section of the house. The structural integrity of the foundation is also lacking. The foundation is a combination of stone bonded with grout supporting the rear section of the home, with cinder block placed as a retaining wall in a futile effort to hold back the supporting soil. So in that, you can see a picture of it's essentially stone where they've, over the years, applied different layers of grout or cement across it, holding it back. Once again, this applies to the back section of the house. The front section of the house looks like it was not built very well at first, but at some point in time in its history, somebody put some effort into resupporting that structure, and it was at a time when real foundations were being built. So the front of the house has a better support system than the back section of the house. The front of the house also has 2x10 joists supporting the floor system. And that's part of the reason why we feel that structural integrity doesn't apply across the board on this house. One thing that I don't have in my write-up that I'm sending over to you guys, in looking through historical pictures, we have not found anything that shows multiple time periods of the house being added on to. There's one picture that staff presented that shows the front of the house from the western side, and you can't really see if there's a back section there or not. That doesn't mean it's not there, we just can't see it. But in the actual structural analysis, it's very obvious that that front section, the 12 feet that we're keeping, was the original part of the house. And at some time period later, we have no idea when that is, it was added onto and then added onto a third time. Those additional add-ons were done to a lower caliper build out, and that's what we're looking at removing. Our proposal is to make cosmetic alterations to the front 12 feet of the structure, including updating the siding, windows, trim, and roofing material, but keeping that structure in place. We'll remove the failing structure behind the 12-foot frontage, and that falls in line with the intent and purpose of the Historical Preservation Code. The demolition request to the rear of the structure, along with the allowance to update and restore the frontage, meets every requirement as outlined in the municipal code. And I think that is everything, other than I will make a comment. The reason why this was received by staff today was because we didn't get staff reporting until sometime after 10 o'clock this morning, maybe it was closer to 11 o'clock. So we had no documentation on what the staff report was until today. And so there was no way for us to respond back to staff without knowing what we needed to respond to. And so that is all. I can take questions at this time.
All right. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Garrett, so I'm just trying to understand, you seem to know a lot about this property and the structural integrity and whatnot of the whole thing, front and back.
Yes.
Are you an architect or structural engineer?
I'm a designer. I am a contractor. I have, in 1996, I started a company here in Old Town Louisville, and I focused on only 10 blocks of this area.
Okay.
And I've worked in this 10 blocks for since 1996, almost 25 years, exclusively in this neighborhood. So 27 homes that I personally have built, and another 40 to 50 that I've consulted and worked on.
I asked just because we, like when we're looking for, to see if a house is eligible for landmarking, we do it, typically it goes through historical structure assessment.
Right.
And we totally honor the, expertise of the people that do that, architects and engineers, to tell us that, yeah, this is what we'd have to do, or it's a lost cause or whatever. So I was just trying to understand your relationship in this home. So that was all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know in your plan, in the packet that we received, you had some plans as far as like what you're going to do to the house.
Yes.
And the elevations, the south and north elevation, we didn't have a west elevation from the front.
There should be one. There is one on the portal. So we have, I believe we left out the northeast angle, but there was a west angle, there was a southwest angle, there was a south angle, and then a south.
Staff, am I missing that in the package? Anyone else? Am I missing? I see clearly we have a south and north elevation, but I don't see that.
What was submitted with the packet in terms of the application materials, what came with the application from the July 20th email. So if it wasn't in that, it wouldn't have been in here unless I, of course, missed it. So.
Okay.
I'm just confused. Are we discounting submittals through the conventional submission setup that the city has in place?
And I'm just looking, oh, go ahead.
Nope, sorry to interrupt. Nope, I was just going to say that no, of course not. I just, it was my understanding that what came via email was the full application.
Okay.
And so as far as the demolition to the beyond 12 feet, if we were to prove that, and then later you did want to make changes to the front of the building, because it's 50 years or older, it would have to be approved for that as well. Is that correct, Steph?
If I can make a comment too, I just pulled up the email from 12:27 p.m. It has 4 elevation drawings in the email. One is actually the northeast side. One is the southeast side. One is the southwest side. And one is a little bit straight, I'll call it straight up west side. So there's 4 elevations that were sent over in that email on July 20th at 12:27 p.m.
Okay.
And then to answer your question, yes, if they were to go forward with choosing to remove or alter the existing or remaining 12 feet, should it have been, remained or stayed, they would have to, there would be a building permit. And yes, since that portion would be older than 1955, we would take a look at it.
Okay. So as far as our decision tonight, the plans for the original part of the building is not necessarily up for discussion, Jay, anyway. Is that correct? I guess the
Correct.
only,
It would be the 12.
okay. I guess my question too is, because we didn't get the west elevation, it's hard to tell, like, and
So,
I guess
right,
too,
I would say so this is the demolition review.
right,
So
that's really all we have
Kim,
to
can you
focus
share
on.
the criteria so there's a couple things here. I think we can maybe share on the screen those elevations so everybody could see them, might be a good thing to do. And then I think if we could reiterate what the criteria are for demolition review. So you're determining whether to issue a stay on the demolition. So the plans for the building renovation, those haven't been submitted, I don't think.
Okay.
You wouldn't review those, the addition to the building. So they're not, I don't know that they are relevant to the demolition. I think it's the criteria for the demolition, whether or not Kim, help me with the criteria of what it is for the demolition. I can look it up here, but we might want to bring that section up as well and read that section just so we're all clear at what we're looking at here.
Okay.
Yep, I'm just pulling it up on the screen here, so we have that in front of us again. So it'll be the review criteria numbered 1 through 4 before you.
Okay. And that's what I want to just make sure is that because we really are not doing any kind of design review at all tonight. So that's just something to keep in our mind, is that we don't need to worry about what they're going to do to the front of the building or the addition at this point, because as that comes, we will be part of that discussion. That's correct, right? Because the addition, they still have to get it submitted, like the alteration.
Right. So let me try to address that. So you're looking at the existing building. So there's the review criteria 1 through 4. So is the existing building, is it eligible for designation potentially as an individual landmark? Is the existing building potentially a contributing structure to historic district? We don't have historic districts, but no. So number 1 is relevant. The reasonable condition of the building, number 3 is relevant. 4, the reasonable projected cost of a restoration or repair. So you could take, 1, 3, and 4 into consideration to see if you feel like a stay is warranted on the property. Now, what happens? Now they could come in for a building permit at any point to alter the front of the building which could require additional demolition review or make an addition to the rear of the building, that would be completely administrative. You know, they could be eligible for preservation bonuses for preserving the front facade, as long as they don't alter that front facade. But you wouldn't review that. That would be an administrative review as well if they maintain that. But again, those future scenarios, you know, while informative, they don't really inform any of the relevant review criteria, I don't believe. So I would really focus on those.
Okay. And my only question as far as the addition is any kind of wrapping around or something that would change that. That's the only, as far as the design review.
Yeah, so if they wrapped around that front, there could be potentially additional demolition review. It could also eliminate the ability to get a preservation bonus. We would have to review that separately.
Okay.
But it's not really part of whether, you know, a stay is warranted.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure all that's pretty spelled out for us. So does anyone have any questions about that on the commission as far as what we're looking at tonight, as far as just the partial demolition and not the design review?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because I didn't know why we were going down that road. I was getting massively confused. I'm like, I don't think that's what we're looking at tonight. So whether we have all the elevations or not, I was like, wait, does that count? I don't think that's
Right.
the point.
Right.
So thank you for clarifying.
Yep. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So any other questions for the applicant? Okay. And then we'll see if there's any public comment. And I don't see any. So we'll bring it back for discussion with the commission.
Well, for better or for worse, this commission that I've been on for almost 3 years and previous commissions, we have set the precedent that our social significance is related to the people who live there, whether they were the town mayor or the fire chief or a coal miner. We don't typically discriminate against status of a person to establish social significance, which I personally appreciate. So I think it does have social significance. You know, whether it's interesting because, of course, earlier this evening, we did see a very unique property that our Paleo West consultants, you know, tagged out for us, so we can really highlight those. So while I do appreciate that perhaps this particular architectural style that we're looking at tonight might feel like a dime a dozen, it still holds significance in my opinion. And then of course it meets age. So for the review criteria 1, I, you know, that's how I feel about those 3 myself. Sounds like for like on the list number 3, it does sound like there are some significant structural issues to the back portion of the property, which we've seen before, right? Foundations and perhaps not as well constructed with 2x4s. Wish those had been 2x12s. I'm sure everybody wishes they had been 2x12s or 2x10s, but it sounds like they were 2x4s and spaced poorly. So that does sound like the structure in the back anyway isn't quite up to snuff. And then I guess we don't have the numbers. So, but those of us who've been on the commission, we know those foundation are just getting pricier and pricier every time we see them, you know, to restore the foundations and stuff. So.
So as far as the demolition, what are your thoughts? The partial demolition.
Right, the partial demolition.
Mhm.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
So I agree with Andrea that the criteria of age and significance are met for this structure. You know, as she kind of ended with, though, the integrity of the home is very questionable. And when we look around Louisville, what's often happening, as has been indicated, is we push to save those fronts of homes, and then builders kind of build back. And I know that we're not looking at designs tonight and debating designs and things like that, but that's probably, I think, what we would hope for with this building realistically, because of the condition of the back, likely would be found to need some work there. As has been indicated, the builders could apply for an HSA in the future to get to figure out structurally what would be needed to maintain the front of the home, as is done, get some monies perhaps to do that. I think those are good things to hope for with this home, even if we hadn't seen any designs tonight, which we're not considering. That's kind of where we would end up going. So I'd like to see the front of the home maintained if possible, because I do think it's significant. I think I was on that road today, kind of looking at the house, and there's two houses right next to it with the same fronts, with the windows. I believe both are landmarked. At least one is. At least one to the south is. I think the one to the north is as well. But kind of as a collective, they add a lot of history to that neighborhood. So it would be nice to see the front preserved. But I don't know that putting a stay will guarantee that any more than letting the demolition move forward. So I think I'm leaning towards the demolition, with the hope that the front is retained.
So just to clarify too, if we do a partial demolition, would this negate any landmarking potential? Is that?
This is Rob again. I would say that it's up to the commission whether that would allow, whether you would accept it for demolition. But I think with that much of the house demoed, staff would not support it because it wouldn't have any structural integrity left.
Okay.
Or architectural integrity. But Kim, weigh in if you want.
I would just agree. That's how it would look. You could certainly, if they wanted to investigate what that could look like, should everything but the first 12 feet, be demoed and then they've done work or something like that. But as Rob noted, the likelihood just with the historic integrity that might remain would probably preclude it from being able to be landmarked.
Okay.
Huh, okay, that's throwing me off quite a bit then.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've had alteration certificates where we've passed something, someone is interested in landmarking it. They go through the process, they do the HSA, they come to us with an alteration certificate, and we have landmark properties, and they've only saved 10 feet or 25%.
So that's a preservation bonus. That is not a landmarking.
Right.
So I don't think there's ever actually been a landmark where there was just a preservation of the minimum amount of facade, which is different than landmarking. And I know there's been some confusion on that. There have been some landmarks where the commission has approved an alteration certificate that partially wraps around the sidewalls of the house. But I think there's also been a lot of discussion about how appropriate that is based on Department of Interior standards for separating additions from the historic structure. Mm-hmm. So I think there's been some shift in the commission's attitudes towards that. But again, this is that isn't what we're looking at this evening. This is probably a really good debate for additional discussion with the commission, because we don't know what could, we know what might happen to this property. It's really up to the commission to recommend landmarking and approve alteration certificates based on criteria. But that isn't what's before you this evening.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it does bring up the point of, is this a home that we are willing to give up landmark status for the partial demolition? So basically, by agreeing to partially demo it, we would be giving up the opportunity to landmark it. I think I do agree with Andrea as far as making sure that we recognize that social significance is, coal miners were a huge part of our history. And so it definitely does have strong social significance for the, simply because a lot of coal miners lived there and they lived in small homes. And now it's a huge part of how Louisville was started. So I do think, and to that point also, they did not have the means to buy the big beefy lumber and all the intricate details on the front of the house, and the structural pieces to make the house. Like, there's just a lot of things, because it was a miner's home, that show from the architecture as far as their income bracket at the time. So I think that's also something to consider is, and we do have a lot of these homes in Louisville, but if we decide that they're not significant, then we're going to lose a lot of homes in Louisville that are minor homes and of this size and condition and all those things. So yeah, so I think there is the decision of, is it better to lose part of it and maintain the, well, at least you get to still see it, but it might not be in the same, as far as doors and windows, it might not really represent what was originally there. That's just, we're giving up some of that control to that as far as that preservation, but it would still be there. So that's just the point, is that if we do decide to partially demolish this building, chances are it would not be eligible for landmarking in the future. So, and I think that was why I was questioning and kind of looking at the design review, is kind of my mind was going towards, could this be landmarked later? Like, is this a potential? But if it's not, then it kind of brings up a whole other discussion. So. Keith, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, yeah, I've been given a lot of thought. This is kind of a tricky one. I do agree that you shouldn't have a class system when you're trying to landmark something. I don't care if you're the mayor of Louisville or just a lowly coal miner. It's still socially significant, and I agree with that. What I'm concerned about is the reasonable condition of the structure, which 2x4s on 2-foot spaces is not reasonable from a structural safety issue. So, and I think 12 feet is a significant portion of it if they do indeed keep it the same. So I'm kind of leaning towards letting them tear out the back part, only because even if you landmark it, if we could landmark it in the future, if it's structurally unsound, it's not going to help if you have a landmark that falls down 20 years down the road. Just my thoughts. I mean, it's weighing a safety issue versus trying to landmark a home.
Mm-hmm.
And being an engineer, I kind of lean towards the safety issue. But the emotional part of me says keep the home. So hell, I don't know.
Well, but I would also say, that because we do offer a significant amount of money to do historical structural assessment, we have been pretty active in allowing extraordinary circumstances
Mhm.
that, you know, we really, has this home really gone through, you know, the full process to really see, you know, what could be done with it. And if, I mean, we're gonna help pay for it. Like, right? We're gonna help pay potentially to shore it up.
Right.
Again, it's like putting your blinders on because we're not supposed to know the other path of the story tonight, right? You know what I mean? So it's a little awkward.
Well, and I think regardless of knowing whether they're going to add things or not, it is that piece of, if we only leave up 12 feet, would that qualify for landmarking? So I still think we can be pretty objective with it, and kind of put the potential design in the background. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
really it's a, you know, as far
It
as,
should be,
do we feel like this home meets our qualifications and shouldn't be demolished? And if that's true, then would 12 feet of the savings, 12 feet of the structure, would that protect the landmark, or would it not? So if we demo everything but the first 12, and we say this is a property that could be landmarked, which I think from our criteria, we're saying it could be. Like if they came and said we wouldn't like to landmark this, we would landmark it, unless there were significant structural and all that stuff. But based on social history, architectural integrity, and age, we would definitely say that it would. And so now if we're looking at partial demolition, if we take down everything but the first 12 feet, would that disqualify it from being landmarked? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like we've circled around because that was my question originally. I'm like, I feel like it all came in packaged together. I feel like we said that, but Rob said that no, that's not typically how it goes, and that this, if we partially demo this, then it won't ever be eligible for landmarking. So my
Right.
question then is, if that's the case, then you know, putting a stay on it to allow time to potentially get an HSA done, to potentially see if right, so that the owner can still, it's so awkward, right? Because they're in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if they went through the process and we paid for the HSA, and they came through with and then they came through with an HSA, decided, yeah, maybe I do want to landmark it. Then they submit an alteration certificate. They're going to save the first 12 feet as long as they honor the first, you know, the front of it and the windows and whatever, restore that, and not, you know, it's still original. Right, then they would do an addition to the back and we'd be fine with that.
right.
Unless the 12 feet isn't enough of the original saved.
Right, and if you tear it down, then there is no original. It's the original saved, it's all gone, right? So it's right. So that's why if we do the demo tonight and the whole thing goes, then there's the 12 feet now becomes 4 feet because it's only 25% or whatever it is, or it's not enough. It has to be 10 feet, you know, and then there's not enough of the building left.
Well, they're saving 12 feet of it. the front 12 is what they're not demoing, right?
Right, but
Okay.
but if it comes, the order is back, in my mind, the order is backwards, because if the whole thing demo happens, then you come to us, well, here's what's left of my home, there's only 12 feet left, then you can't, like,
Right.
I don't know, something, there's just something weird about how this is, but I guess in my mind, if they're willing to save the 12 feet, then maybe they're willing to work with us and land market, knowing too that we'd pay for an HSA to see what is going back with your foundation, and maybe give you money to save the foundation. Again, maybe not, because maybe the addition's too big and the whole thing, but I don't know.
I make a
leaning for
comment?
stay, just to make sure that those options are kind of maybe explored a little bit more. I
Right.
don't know if a 6-month stay
Right.
is in order, or perhaps we're at a 5-month now. At this point, we're at a 5-month. So I'm wondering again, back to maybe a 3-month or 4-month, just to explore those other options.
Sure.
Knowing too that it could be money in their pocket to help pay for it, depending if you're willing. You get the landmark bonus, you get the HSA done. If you've already saved the 12 feet anyway, right? Like,
Right.
throw
And
some money at
we'll
your
hear-
project.
Right. We'll hear from the applicant again. But my question, Andrea, was, is 12 feet enough of the house to be landmarked? Right? So is that, because if we say 12 feet is enough, that you could come back and that's enough that we would landmark it if you decide to. That way, if they decide to landmark, we can. But if it's just a question, is 12 feet enough? So I'll let that.
Right. That's and that was kind of my original question. I was like,
Right.
is it 10 feet? Is it
Right.
25%? I can never keep that straight in my mind.
Right. So is everyone okay with me opening up to the applicant again? Since he has his hand raised, is that okay?
Oh,
with everyone?
yes, sorry, I didn't see that.
Okay. We'll hear from the applicant again.
Thanks for your time this evening. I know it's lingering on, but I do appreciate your efforts here. And the coal mining thing's very close to my heart, coming from Northern England. So I'll be a coal miner going back in that neighborhood. Chrissy, I appreciate you walking by, because you made a really good comment about the 3 houses all looking similar and having similar kind of frontages. And that's one of the reasons why we're keeping that 12 feet, because it keeps the integrity of that row. And I like that. The question of landmark has come up, and I didn't bring it up. So I don't know if that's something I needed to have done. I don't think Garrett and I really felt that we wanted to landmark this property. We just want to demo and add on to the back and keep the integrity of the first 12 feet. So whilst I understand there are grants and money that the Historical Preservation Committee can give, in this case, I'd rather see that money going to somebody who is actually going to restore the complete building and bring that back to life, because that's where that money should go. It shouldn't go to the builders of building big additions, the Andy Johnson style. That's not historical preservation. It should go to the people who want to keep the structure, want to keep the size and the foundation. So I am not looking for money from historical preservation. I'm just looking for them to say, what you're doing makes sense. You're keeping the integrity of those 3 houses together. You're keeping the first 12 feet, which clearly shows the box shape and the pitch of the roof, which is how that original miner's cottage was. And to Garrett's point, it was added on a couple of times. So we're taking away what was built badly and added on after the initial building. And that I feel like is being honorable to what's going on with downtown Louisville, as opposed to let's just rip it down and build something brand new with no indication at all of historical value. Garrett, have you got any thoughts?
I do have, so you've taken some of the words out of my mouth in your comments about the monies available. Once again, I believe that those monies should be going into other style projects. With that said, Andre and I, and obviously you guys aren't privy to the background going into this, but when Andre came to me, one of the reasons why he did come to me is because he's seen other projects I've done in town and how I have kept some of that historical look. The one main thing that I feel is being missed in this conversation is Andre's lot is a fairly narrow lot. And so it's not like you have this wide piece of property that you can see all the different angles from the house. With the adjacent houses on the east and west, or sorry, north and south of it, keeping the frontage is going to keep that look from the street side. And in addition, our design, we lowered the wall section for the add-on to the back of the house. And in our design, that second story wall, which normally a builder would put at 8 feet or higher to create, volume ceilings in their house, those are drawn right now at 5 feet. And that's our intent, is to keep that addition with a low profile and create the roof system so it minimizes the bulk look of that house moving across the back. And once it's built, when you have the combination of the trees and the adjacent homes next door, you really don't see the sidelines of the house. You're looking at the frontage only. And that was our goal, was to keep that frontage. So when people drive by, they don't see it as a large home. They see it as a historic frontage. And then are pleasantly surprised when they walk into the house and see that there's more room to the back and it's not a little 400 square foot shack, right? It's actually usable in modern society and not just something that's sitting there that holds history but can't be used today.
Thank you for that perspective. All right, so we'll bring it back to the commission again.
So ironically, Andre and Garrett, what you're describing is exactly what the commission wants to see. And we actually do want to give you money to do that. I know, right? And you're thinking, but really in historic preservation, we understand that people have to live in these homes, right? So the way the standards are set up, we are looking for people to preserve the front, to maintain the size. So if you're walking by the street, you don't notice what's going on in the back, that kind of thing. So what you guys are describing to us is exactly the kind of stuff we love and would approve all day of the week. And if you're willing to landmark it, we'll help you do that. So I would love for you guys to reconsider and look at our program and take advantage of it. The taxpayers of Louisville wanted to do this. We voted on it twice. This little sales tax that gives you the funding to do this the citizens want that to happen. So I wouldn't be shy about taking advantage of it. And I'd like to give you some time to maybe think about it and talk to Kim. It might be a little bit longer of a process.
But that's a process that can move forward with our permit process as well. That's not the demo part of the process. That would be the permit process.
Well,
because we have other examples like Rex Theater and stuff around town.
Yeah, yes, and Rob and Kim can jump in. Yes, I think you would still be entitled to some preservation bonus, some stuff, but there's extra bonuses I think available if you landmark and that type of thing.
There's also, you can also landmark without taking grants. That's another piece of it. And I think just to go over the program too, the intent of the landmark is so that, you will live in this house once it's complete for as long as you want. But then when you sell it, someone else could decide that they don't like that quaint, small piece of it, and they could take it all off. And there's no protection basically for that historic part of the building. So, I mean, and so probably they would not want to, because what you do with the house will be amazing and no one will want to touch it. But there's always that potential that down the road, someone could change it, take out windows and doors and like change openings and make it look completely different than what it does today, or when you kind of make it yours. And if we were to actually like take the windows back to the long windows and all that to the original picture. So that's some of the motivation behind the landmark is we would, like Andrew said, we'd love to give you money because that's what our constituents and community members voted on. But you can still landmark and not take a grant. That's also an option. And it's more of just the idea that signifying that this is a significant house. You get a really cool plaque that you get to pick the name, a historical name for your house. And there's actually, there are bonuses as far as adding on, like, I'm missing the name of it, the lot coverage. You get more lot coverage and that kind of thing that are non-monetary bonuses, but there's something you can take advantage of, similar to the conservation easement. So there are parts of our program that, because it sounds like your heart is the same as ours as far as appreciating the history, appreciating the character of the physical house and all of that. So we're in agreement on that. So we could agree to do a partial demolition for this property and basically never talk to you again as a commission, and the house would not be landmarked, and no one in the neighborhood, unless they talk to you specifically, would know any history about someone driving by wouldn't know that it's a significant house. And so that's one piece of it. And if we were to partially demolish it, we don't know if it would meet, we just wouldn't have the conversation again, is basically just what our side of it is we wouldn't have that conversation. So part of the stay would be, because it sounds like too, perhaps the way this whole application went, there were just a lot of miscommunication and misses in general. And so probably getting an idea of what our program is might not have been part of the discussion. So that's just kind of our side of it, is you don't have to take the money, but we'd love to give you money. And it's more of the principle of what our downtown is and what our community, how much we value it as far as wanting to preserve. So that's all I was going to say about that. So do the applicants have anything else before you take it back to discussion again?
Yeah, so I would say, I find a couple things. I would say, by us demoing the back of the house, my understanding of the preservation codes, that does not eliminate that front section from receiving historical status or landmark status and qualifying for the programs that you have. But I'm not positive to that. I have to read into the actual code a little bit deeper and see. With that, I think, yeah, that's something that can be done in a week's time, right? And so if you are leaning towards creating a stay so that we can discuss with staff those ideas, I think a week's worth of time is more than enough to go through that, understand that. And if I guess I look at it from the point of view, that's what our intent is to do anyway. And I agree with you keeping that status moving forward. So if Andre ever did decide to sell the house, that front section has historical status is is along the lines of what we're thinking anyway. But we need to, my personal opinion is we can still do that moving forward and still demo the back of the building and discuss that with staff. If you don't feel comfortable with that side of it, we don't need much time to have that discussion and figure out what we need to do to get that and start that process in place. And that can happen outside of the permit process, right?
Okay. So basically just a much shorter stay is what you're saying. The timeline on that could be really.
Yeah. Within a week, a week's time is more than enough to establish, that, I understand what you're saying. Like we can go and say, all right, if we agree to this, this, and this, then you'll give this money for restoring that front to the
Right.
historic status and go that way. And I can't speak for Andre at this point with that, but knowing with what I've worked with him on, I think he'd be very open for that. But I don't know that that's a conversation that I feel we would have, whether you approve this or not. We would probably still have that conversation and with staff. So.
Okay. All right.
Oh, looks like Andre wants to say something.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Garrett has got the idea as to where I'm coming from. I don't think we need to labor over multiple weeks over this in terms of what can be done. It's actually been a long time coming, and we missed the last HPC meeting by 2 days. So, I'm somewhat anxious to get going on this.
Sure.
And I'm certainly excited to see what the HPC can offer in terms of maintaining the front of that house and how we can clean that up and do it in a fashion that looks really good. And I love the idea of a plaque. I think that'd be awesome. So, I'd be happy moving ahead if we can get something nailed down within a week. It's not rocket science. It just needs to be said, this is what we're going to do.
All right. What's the total length of the house? So we're talking about the first 12. How much is the entire house?
Garrett.
See that in our notes.
No, I do not have the plans in front of me because I didn't know I didn't think we were necessarily going to be discussing that today, but off the top of my head, I believe the overall length of the house is just under 40 feet, but I'm not positive. I have to look at that. Because we're basically adding a kitchen and bathroom behind this section and then a living room to the side. So I'm going to say our overall length is somewhere between 30 and 40 feet deep.
Of the original house.
So from the front of the original house to the top of the new addition, I believe it's somewhere in that 30 to 40 foot range.
Well, do you know what the front of the house to the original back of the house is?
Oh, I got you. I believe that's I think that's like 24 feet.
Okay. So basically 12 feet is just about half of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty close. I think we're a couple inches under 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll bring it back to discussion for the commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And staff, as far as our percentage and length of, what is our?
Right. So to be clear, that this has nothing to do with landmarking. So to landmark a house, there is no percentage threshold. There is no, front 12 feet. That has nothing to do with designation as a landmark. That has to do with our zoning preservation bonus. So the zoning preservation bonus is 12 feet or 25%, whichever is more. There's no money available for that. That's just the zoning density bonus. Okay. And that front facade has to be preserved. It's supposed to be preserved, in a historic condition. But as we've talked about in the past, there's no covenant or agreement on that. It's just through the building permit process. So. Right.
But if we approve this, okay, never mind. So we're gonna do a stay, right? That's,
So I think so your criteria are that if you think the existing house,
mhm,
may be eligible for landmarking.
okay,
And so that's one, if you find that, and then you also find that, the building is in a reasonable condition and that the reasonable projected cost of restoration or repair isn't too high. I don't know that we have projected costs. We usually don't. So we usually set that aside. So it's usually about the eligibility of the building, which could be for architectural or social reasons, or
mhm,
it could be, and then if you think it is eligible for architectural or social reasons, potentially, then there's the condition of the building. Okay, so if you find that it's in good enough condition, then I think we always talk about, well, what's the right amount of stay that may be needed? And there are no criteria for that. That's, we like to discuss about, have we had a discussion with the applicant? Is there potential? Is there potential to do a historic structure assessment that might put more light on it? And do we need more time to do that? So those are some of the discussions that we've had on other similar projects, trying to determine how long of a stay, if you think a stay is warranted based on those criteria.
okay, okay, we're good. I'm good. Is anyone else good? I'm sorry, this has been like round and around. Okay, so I think we agree that we do want to stay, but but to shorten the stay. The applicant has requested a week stay. Does anyone have a different amount of a stay that we would agree on?
I don't agree with the week stay just because I think that puts quite a bit of pressure on staff
Mhm.
to get questions answered, and they're obviously busy with a variety of different projects and things going on. So I would want to honor staff and not, have this all land on their lap and they have a minimal of time to respond and talk and discuss and sort it all out. And then we are already 30 days in, I believe, right? Because it's August 16th and we were talking somewhere July 20th. So to me, it seems like to get the date right, to maybe honor, meet in the middle where we're trying to process this through on behalf of the homeowner, but we're also trying to make sure that we do have our ducks in the row. So in the event that, somebody wants to landmark or whatever, we don't make a mistake and do something where then we can't back out and landmark. So to me, I would think a 60-day, because we've already used 30 of it, would be, that's what I would say.
So you'd say do a 60, maybe a 30.
Because we're already 30 into it, and then that gives, instead of staff having that dumped on them and sorted in a week, that they have a little bit more room. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we usually do 30, 60, 90, 100,
Right.
we try to do them in 30-day chunks.
Does staff have any scheduling feedback or anything as far as reasonable discussion with the applicant?
Nope, whatever the commission should suggest, we would make sure that we can do that.
Okay. So 60-day would start at the 20th. Is that the date that we would be going on?
Right.
So that'd basically be August 20th? No, September 20th-ish.
September 20th. Wait a minute, or 40, maybe a 45?
What would that land us?
So 60 days from July 20th, should that be the date we're working from, would be Saturday, September 18th.
And then what would 45-day be?
couple weeks before that.
45
So
days is September 3rd.
Tuesday.
If staff had no objections to that time frame, I would like to see the 45-day.
Okay. Yeah, I think 45, September 3rd sounds good to me.
Okay.
How do you feel about that, Andrea and Keith?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like staff's, willing to get this all.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andrea was reading my mind because I was thinking 2 to 3 weeks in my mind, but with the 6 to 45, and you've already done 30, it's probably about right.
Mm-hmm.
A couple weeks instead of a week. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 week is just way rushing,
Yeah.
I think,
Okay.
especially on staff.
All right. So I think we are ready to make a motion.
Yep.
Okay. I'll make the motion for 614 Grant Avenue to place a stay on demolition for 45 days, taking us to September 3rd for review.
All right.
I'll second.
We'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Clemmy,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Keller,
Yes.
Chair Haley.
Yes. So we do appreciate you being here tonight and working through this with us. And again, on behalf of staff and us and City of Louisville and everything, like, we apologize for any miscommunication and just as far as the process. I know too, we're always open for feedback. So always trying to improve the process. And so definitely let us know, like, kind of, we'll try to figure out what went wrong where, but if you have any feedback, we're always open to that. So yeah, so we appreciate your patience and for still working with us tonight.
And excited about your project.
Yeah, we're excited.
You'll have to come and check it out.
Thanks
Yeah.
for your time. We really appreciate your efforts tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good
Have a
evening.
good evening.
All right, so that was our last public hearing. And finally, next, item 8, we have items from staff.
Good evening. So I don't have too many updates in terms of our typical updates of any sort of subcommittee review. The subcommittees that were reviewed this month, we came before us this evening and we saw them both. So we don't have any landmark or other demolition or alteration certificate subcommittee updates at this time. So the only other thing I would want to note is we'll just continue to do Zoom meetings, as I mentioned last month, until at least September. It looks, I don't know how things might change, but we can just continue expecting that we'll do Zoom for now. And then the third thing I just want to make sure that I update to you all from the staff would be that I believe all of you should have gotten a doodle poll from Lisa, just asking about if you wanted to be a part of some of the interview sessions, as it were, for the Old Town overlay. I can have her resend that if you'd like to join and participate in the interviews and get that doodle poll just to see what time might be good and if that fits with the interview schedule. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can let me know and then we can get that to you. Otherwise, I know some people have responded. So I just want to make sure I updated about that.
Did I respond to that? I feel like I did, but I can't remember now. Do you know who did and who didn't, or is it anonymous?
I'm not sure. Lisa did the doodle poll, so I can't know for sure.
Okay, I feel like I did, but now I'm like, I don't know. It
I
was
don't
from,
feel like I got that email.
I know. It was
I don't
from
feel like-
We can, yep, we can follow up with you all. It might be confusing too, because you also got a doodle poll from me not too long before that. So we're sending you a lot of doodle polls lately.
Okay, I think I saw yours. I see hers now. That's weird.
That's weird. I don't, but
Kim and Rob, are there a certain number of our commission members who are needed to be on that commission?
No, they're really just, so our consultants are really just doing stakeholder interviews with HPC, Planning Commission, City Council, and others. There's no requirement. It's really just a one-time stakeholder interview to help inform the new code draft. So if you can't, if you can all make it, that's great. If you just can't make it work for your schedule, it's not fatal to the project at all. You'll still get to review and comment on the draft code. There'll be more opportunities to participate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if there's any questions, and if the way we usually do this, just so you know, we always forget you don't see all the what's going on in the background, but we've hired this consultant to rewrite to study and rewrite the Old Town Overlay zoning standards. So that's our standard administrative code for, residential development. It also includes that preservation bonus and the landmarking bonus. So those are really key parts of the code that I think you all need to weigh in on. Whether it's working, whether it's the right number for a bonus, do we want to provide even stronger incentives? It's a lot of push and pull because we get a lot of feedback about, new buildings and building additions being too big and bulky for the character. Even landmarked buildings sometimes with the additions, which is, a separate issue, but they're usually fitting within that zoning standard once they get landmarked and you're looking at the alteration certificate. So I think it's you guys have the most experience doing that type of review. So it's great feedback for you all to, talk to our consultants and weigh in on the project. But, the way it works is we hire the consultant. We're going to have a big public open house meeting. We're going to have a walking tour for the public. We're going to have online engagement. We're going to allow people to submit photos of buildings they like and don't like. We're trying to be sensitive to, not wanting to pick on specific property owners too. So we're trying to have that balance. But really, our consultants are going to write kind of an analysis of what's working and what's not. They're going to submit that to the city, and then we're all going to review that. And then they're going to actually try to rewrite the code. So based on the feedback and their analysis, they're going to draft a new code that we hope will, better reflect the historic context of Old Town residences. So there's lots of tools that we could consider, from the zoning standpoint about how big and bulky houses should be within different portions of the lot, to try to say it crudely. But, there's things like bulk plane and setbacks and floor area standards, that'll shape, we don't want to design the house, but we want to shape the house so that it's more in character. So that's our goal with this project. So this is going to be like a 6-month project that's kind of in that analysis stage and then reviewing a new code. And there's going to be public open houses at all the stages along the way, as well as public hearings when we get to Planning Commission and City Council, review of the actual ordinance. So hopefully I didn't go, I don't know if you all knew that, but hopefully that's some helpful background on the process.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think it is important that some of us, as many of us, can be there as possible, because I think that conversation will help our decisions and also help kind of form what happens with the code. So
yeah,
that's good. And thank you for pointing that out, Kim, because I think I saw it and I didn't know exactly what that was about. And so I think I tabled it to decide what that was. So thank you for pointing that out. And I did my doodle, so I'm good.
yes, thank you for pointing that out, because somehow I don't know where that email disappeared, but I retrieved it out of the trash and I fixed my problem. So I'm good.
That's good. All right, good. And Kim, were there any other updates, or was that all of it?
That is all of the staff updates, and then we also have the coloring subcommittee book, the coloring book subcommittee update. So I could go right into that if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay,
that's
great. I'm going to share my screen really quick so we can kind of see. So earlier or between a couple weeks ago, the subcommittee of Andrea or Commissioner Clemmy and Commissioner Berg and I, we met and we took the feedback from our previous meeting of discussing kind of what should be included in the coloring book, what buildings should be included, what kind of context or focus did we want to have. And then we sat down and had a meeting and discussed what you see before you. So we picked 15. These are largely almost exactly what we talked about, barring a few addresses here and there. So what we have before you as a subcommittee is sort of what we talked about for the different sections. You can see the breaking down between ag, industrial, or other commercial and residential, making sure that everything was landmarked to meet that and to help just promote our program. And so these are ones we've sort of settled on as a subcommittee. I'll stop there just in case if any of the other subcommittee members want to talk through it. And then of course we can answer any questions, but mostly we just wanted to see how everyone thought this looked, and especially given the change from the last time we kind of looked at the list and see how we can go from there.
So I guess as a subcommittee member, one thing that I would like to highlight, we did put for commercial, we did put the Blue Parrot sign in there as well. It doesn't, maybe not so much about our program, but the commercial structures were a little bit maybe harder to, kind of that false front, one false front store looks like a lot of the other false front stores, you know what I mean? So we're trying to maybe add a little bit variety. And then Kim told us that the Blue Parrot sign's gonna be, at least for a little while, going up into the library. So it'll get some, the public and the kids and people will be seeing that sign again. So we did include that. And then Kim, can you remind me why do we have asterisks on 3? Because 3 of them I don't remember.
Yep, you probably can't see. That's an excellent question. So the only reason there's the asterisk on 3, I think I'm scrolling down and you might be able to see the footer now. So it's another denoting that they're on the National Register as well. So just an extra note.
Okay.
So yep, that's all. That's the only difference.
Okay. I couldn't. Yeah, I just kind of spaced out there. Yeah, and I'm actually looking at my own draft because I can see it better. So anyway.
And I'll just add with the residential, there were a lot of good contenders for landmarked homes in Louisville. So we tried to, I think, really go with trying to represent several different architectural eras, and also trying to keep in mind, as one of our commission members mentioned at the July meeting, trying to really consider that social history and economic history of Louisville. So we looked at the architectural eras, I think, kind of first and foremost, but then really spent some time looking at the histories provided by Bridget from the Historical Museum of each property. And I'm glad they sort of came up tonight, the kind of the history of coal miners versus notable figures, because while some of these are notable figures, others were residents who were day laborers, coal miners. But we tried to get the history of some like English or Welsh families, Italian families, Eastern European families. So there's all that is sort of represented there to see the different groups that helped build Louisville. And I think also with the residential, I know I have some asterisks next to some of mine, which also denote for us different views we were looking at. Some of the homes, have kind of that front-on view, which really kind of do historical justice, and others we kind of noted like we want to work with the illustrator to try to get a side view that really shows more of the historical structure for certain properties if you kind of go from different angles. So we're hoping that what we came up with here really captures quite a bit of Louisville. If you look back up at the architectural industrial other, it's got those really noticeable ones like the grain elevator, but also churches and miners' cabins and a hospital. So trying to kind of get full spectrum of life in Louisville. You know, people live in Louisville, they go to the hospital, they work, they do social gatherings at the church, and then go to the go to the Italian restaurant. There's the sign. It's trying to get that full picture of life in Louisville historically.
Mhm. Yeah, I think those are really good options. The only other commercial that you could play with as far as between Blue Parrot or Empire has that fun Empire sign. But I think Blue Parrot is awesome too. So I think all these are great.
Yeah, I suggested going away from the Empire sign because that used to be I think, if I'm not mistaken, so the restaurant was originally called Kolachi's and they were related to the people who owned the Blue Parrot, right? And so
Right.
when Empire took over that building, probably, I don't know how long they've been there now. I'm thinking probably 10 or 12 years. I think they kept the sign, but they added Empire to it.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, it's not, the sign is historical, but the words Empire are not in
Yeah.
my mind. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Although I'm with you, I kind of prefer that sign. I'm kind of that era girl. I like that sign shape.
Well,
But
and I was just thinking it's the whole like structure too, but the Blue Parrot sign is probably more fun to color as far as just the sign. But it would draw attention. Everyone knows Empire. And so, but now that Blue Parrot is no longer, most people don't know. And so it is good just to note that. So that was my only feedback. I think these are great. And I think the agriculture industrial are great. Like such a good variety of, yeah, just all the different. Yeah, I think these are great. So nice. Have you met with the artist yet? I can't remember what the next
Not
step
yet.
is.
That's right. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. So right now where we're at, we just wanted to make sure that any contract that we might have, kind of the admin side, also took care of or kind of spoke to getting a sample first to then officially make sure that, that's, is the will of the subcommittee and the commission. So that is nearly complete with the contract being ready to go. Then we'll see the sample. And if that works out and everyone approves, we would move forward and be ready to go with the addresses we see here. So we're getting close.
Yeah, that's great. And I think having this narrowed down will make that process that much easier because they can kind of pick which ones they want to kind of show us or whatever. So, okay.
Mm-hmm.
we did have one question that you don't have to decide tonight, but be thinking about. So for the Blue Parrot sign, we were thinking about having the artist, like, it wouldn't just be the sign in the book, but that it would be attached to the building, even though that's not how we see it today, just so it has context, like this is a restaurant and it was on the corner, that kind of thing. So think about whether you think we should do it that way or we should just have the sign and the history of the sign and people color the sign. I don't know. So think about that. We were kind of tossing that around.
Yeah. Right, because when we talked about that, and you guys would all know better than I would, that building's not landmarked.
Right.
We don't want to like mislead people that
Right.
large property when it's not, but it does provide context. It's a really well-known corner in Louisville. So it's sort of we'd love some advice on that one.
Okay. Yeah, it's good. That's something to think about for sure. Because and I guess like in the write-up, it would obviously tell people where it used to be located.
Mm-hmm.
But
to see
it there is different. And maybe depending on the perspective of how they draw it too, they could maybe focus more on the sign where the sign is bigger, which is a little bit of
That's kind of what,
just enough to show like where it is, but not to focus on the building, but just the sign. So I think that's a good, something to definitely think about and have some artistic creativity with it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, thank you guys for working on that. That's great. All right, I think we have any updates do we have any more staff updates? Okay, and this kind of overlaps into our commission updates. So we have our coloring book and then any historical commission updates that we need to know about.
Think so. I think I went to the last one. I thought I reported out on it the last meeting.
You did. They're only every other meeting. So I'm
Maybe
just
every other month.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah.
right. Perfect. Any other updates from commissioners? And if not, we can move to our last item to adjourn. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All right. And we will, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Night.
Thank you. Bye.